Life is a mystery. Won't you be there? Won't you? Life to see. There's a world. There's a lot to see. Won't you? Good evening. I'm going to read you a story if you don't mind. It's called Child, a spooky story by me. Here it is. There was once a sleepy village in a land where no one got to play. It's not that they were overworked. They were too sleepy. They'd barely get out of bed a few days and barely wash their dishes. They'd yawn and stretch. They'd let the dog or cat out. But on most days, they slept. They slept right after waking up, right after breakfast, whenever that was. They slept until it was getting dark again. Sometimes they wouldn't know if it was a supper time or why people would be awake or active in the middle of the night. Because it made no difference. They slept. If they did go out of the house, the horse couldn't be saddled. It was too big. The garden couldn't be plucked. It was 90% thorns. You could eat one fruit. You couldn't go shopping. The burgomaster was a billionaire. He wasn't interested in fair prices for anyone else. The grandparents most people had in another town were stressed and would not conceive of time, except for ill manners, to be someplace else more necessary with odd, strange people trapped in similar situations you couldn't imagine. And all anyone needed would be over in 5 minutes. To be honest, Kara Ruth Bentley was always spying at everyone's window. She couldn't be trusted, but she would always give you things, edible, poisonous things. There was no way she didn't regularly poison at least half the town. The few people she hasn't poisoned would tell her where everyone was hiding. Some in the root cellars themselves. But they sometimes had to go out into the light, so you couldn't rest that way. Because unless you were on the ladder up, she'd be as sure to be rustling in the brooms looking for something and manage to get a hold of you before you'd have time to escape. Locks were the only thing anyone needed an economy one day of the week for money to earn and spend. But the burgomaster, as vaunted as he was, never realized where all his profits were coming from. They were coming from Kara Ruth Bentley's daughters, who owned all the land, had only invested in spices popular with the rest of the world, so every imaginable fancy tool as a specialty, however unnecessary, needed everyone to build the highways and trucks and iron ores in order to keep things running. Unless you were Kara Ruth's friend. But no one was except the rich. There shouldn't have been so many rich people, but the poor were only as easy to get along with as they were tired. And they were always running into Kara Ruth with their baskets of diseased potatoes or slop of vegetable pies that had come undone or been scooped back out of a dog's bed or left on the stairs in a leaky pot. And once in a while, the plague doctor would check on people, reminding them they didn't know if Kara Ruth was innocent and they were crazy, or if a rabbit had gotten in a window and nibbled along with rabid raccoons. One day, Kara Ruth found an old cradle and climbed inside. Excuse me. Being a rather stout woman, a few poor men and women were woken up by the sound of it rocking back and forth. They approached her inside it and said, "Hello." Her rage at being disturbed was incredible. She hissed and formed a kind of green goo in her mouth that she began to spit at them. She claimed she had been sleeping as an innocent child. All night long she cursed and beckoned the guard of the town to arrest them as she cradle banged and clacked across the floor. The room she was visiting became putrid and green. As the folks in the area trembled, disturbed neighbors turned loud, raucous, and unruly. No one could believe there was no way out from the behaviors she had unleashed. Cats went wild, and someone in an attic passed out from a stale gray loaf of banana bread. Her moment had arrived. The town would soon vote for a new supermarket and join the world economy with its need for managers, owners, and workers at the end. And now we're going to have an intellectual follow-up, a professional discussion. What is this story about? It's a story about the participation of women in society and the home, and their role as physician, manager, and professor, as one might infer.